A question I get quite a lot, considering I've been living in the States for 10 years, is what's it like? What's it like living in America? And you know what? Funny enough, the longer you live here, the harder that question is to answer, because I could tell you what it's like to live in Arizona. I lived there for 8 years. I can tell you what it's like to live in Texas. I've lived here for like 2.5 years, but I can't tell you what it's like to live in America. You know, before you come to America, before you visit or anything like that, it's very easy to put Americans just in a box labeled Americans. But the longer you stay here, the longer you realize how every state has its own sort of cultural mores and differences. And the thing is, I've found that the longer I spend in a certain state and then I start acting like that state, it can in ways hold me back when I'm dealing with people from other states. For example, when I was in Washington State, but I was being all Texan about things, it was sort of not working with me. And then when I was here in Texas, dealing with some Californian transplants, expecting them to understand how to behave Texan, again, there was a miscommunication. All right, so then when I was in Washington State, I was about 20 miles north of Seattle. I was there working for a weekend. I walked to some local pub where everybody knew everybody. Like, there's 150 people there and everybody seemed to know everybody's name. It was like the social center of this part of like northern Seattle. And I was just, do what I usually do. I sat at the bar, I start chatting people up. Before you know it, I've made a couple of friends. But the thing that was tricky to me is that I was sitting at the bar and I've made friends with the two bar girls, right? And as my drink finishes, I put my drink down. Now, if you were in Texas, by placing your empty drink on the bar, some psychic bar person has gone, y'all want another drink? And you're already getting another drink, okay? But something else you don't do in Texas is kind of like wave someone over or call across the bar and go, excuse me, hey, yo, it's rude. So I needed a drink. And I continued needing a drink for about 15 minutes as I sit there very politely, kind of just sort of trying to make eye contact and sort of wave my bottle or anything like that. But the bar staff completely ignored me, while 15, 20 people got drinks around me. And they're, like I said, all locals who are just coming up and go, hey, Steve, can I get a drink? Oh, hey, Janine, can I tap me up? And I'm like sitting there going, eventually I had to swallow my Texan manners and be a bit more brash. And it was the only way that I was then able to get a drink. And the rest of the night, I was acting not like a Texan. I was acting like a local. I was being a bit louder. I was waving my drinks. I was waving people down. And that was just the way people do things. But at the same time, here in Texas, I went to pick up a teenager from the other side of town. Turns out they're being looked after by a pair of people who have moved from California a few years ago. So Mrs. and I, when we went to pick them up, we park the car, we get out, and we're walking up to the house to do what? Texas, you already know, right? To do the 10, 15 minutes of conversation with this person as they figure out who we are. We are taking their child off after all. And we get to know each other. There's a bit of chit chat. Eventually you get to the car, a bit more chat, and then you drive off. No. As we're walking up, the door opens and the teenager is sent out to us. And I'm just like, I'm sorry. This is not how this works here. You have to have the conversation. But then only afterwards did I find they were from out of state. They didn't understand the way things are done. So that's the interesting thing. Americans aren't just Americans. Americans are their own unique little tribes. And then inside their tribes, they divide themselves up into little tribes. And when it gets to even the smaller tribes, they divide themselves up by high school football tribes. It's a bonkers place, but the more you live here, the trickier it gets to move around the country.